What is up, Chatbots and digital marketing podcast listeners? This is Karl with another fantastic interview on our podcast. And guess what? I've got a good friend and monster marketer, literally a genius at what he does, bringing companies to fruition with the products that solve massive problems and have mass appeal for most people. In fact, some of the products that he's brought on, I'm sure you actually own some of them. I know I do, and I'm going to bet that most of you, 80% of our listeners, actually own some of these products. So I actually got the opportunity to meet Ron Lynch a couple years ago, because I was hosting an event in Austin, Texas called Zero to Scale. A great event. It was an e-commerce / online marketing event. In fact, even a lot of our people that were in the room were actually just crushing it. Everybody there was crushing it. It was a great event. And Ron was great. He talked about how he brought GoPro to life, and also he sang a John Bon Jovi song at the end of his speech, which was awesome. He was like, you know what, before I go, shot through the heart and you're too late, baby, you give love a bad name. Anyway, he sang it way better than I did. So I want to bring Ron on here live, and actually before I do, because I pre-recorded this just like you probably should when you're doing podcast, for some odd reason, part of the first part didn't get recorded. So I'm going to improvise, and I'm going to redo my introduction for him. That way you guys know exactly who Ron is before I bring him out, and then I'm also going to let you know kind of what the little piece that you missed. It's not bad because it was only just a couple. It was like less than a half a minute, okay? So let me tell you a little bit about Ron. Ron is the creative director and strategist for Big Baby Agency, and Ron Lynch is a unique creative force in the marketing industry. And it has a background in retail operations. Filmmaking, product design made him naturally take to making infomercials in the early 2000s. He worked early on with brands like Space Bag, American Tourist, and Orange Glow to develop direct response short-form spots that sold millions of dollars. In the long-form space, Ron's first infomercials were the Ultimate Chopper, $80 million, the Flavor Wave Deluxe Oven, over $100 million plus, the Total Trolley Ladder, over $80 million in sales, the Smart Wave, $80 million in sales, the Light Reef did over $100 million in sales, and that would be pretty good for an entire career. These were actually his first 5 long infomercials in that exact order. And as of 2014, he has written, directed, and executive produced over 9 long-form commercials and 300 traditional short-term television ads. He has won numerous Telly and ERA awards, including Best Infomercial of the Year and Best Hardware Infomercial of the Year for Total Trolley. And in the past 7 years, his strategic outlines have helped guide product launches for the Rug Doctor, Eagle One, Arrow Garden, Silken Beauty, Tandem, Robin McGraw Revelation, Backjoy, and everybody's favorite GoPro. His work has included new individual products launches for corporations like the Hunter Fan Company, Valvoline, Johnson & Johnson, and the S.C. Johnson family of products. He has helped entrepreneurs and Fortune 500 companies alike build brands through direct sales via television and the web. Ron currently consults with a variety of consumer companies, does successful coaching for elite marketers, and frequently speaks at universities as an expert in the direct response field. Additionally, he is an accomplished author and screenwriter. All right, guys, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to bring Ron on right now. There was a little part that actually didn't get picked up on the recording, so I'm just going to kind of improvise and fill you in. The question that I asked Ron here was, you had a lot of success in the beginning. He had 5 literally knocked out of the park successes, and I asked him, was it always like that? And I asked him that, like a lot of people usually struggle when they start. What were some of the things that got him in the position to where he could be successful? One of the things that he talked about was that he came from the retail space, and for 10 years, he was literally the infomercial guy. He was the guy that was doing product demonstrations. He learned really well how to demonstrate and sell products kind of like live face to face with people. And because of that, it gave him a lot of insight. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Ron. And then at that point, you guys will be able to just see where we're at inside of this podcast. So let's hop on over there now.
There wasn't aggressive. Maybe 10% of our orders came from the internet. People weren't comfortable putting their credit card online. People weren't comfortable really navigating the internet like they are now. And I know that sounds like forever ago. You know, it was, I guess. But so my first couple infomercials, you know, I think you rattled off 6 there that were like out of the park, out of the park, out of the park, out of the park. And then I had a streak where I had 4 or 5 where nothing worked. Like nothing worked. And these are not cheap shows to make. And you have this expectation, like, oh, this is the guy that hits it out of the park. And then suddenly you're bunting and getting first base hits and things aren't working. And you kind of really reevaluate, was I just lucky, or am I good at this? And so I certainly have had my moments of doubt along the way. And I think one of the things that I learned from that was quit making it about me. Sign up for really good products. That's the easiest way to win in business, is to sign up for really good products that really help customers that they don't know anything about. And you're just the person that tells them about it. And that's the simple formula to success.
That's a very simple formula for sure. And there's definitely a good story there. So, I mean, it sounds like for a good 10 years, you got your field manual of like presenting people, like you learned by trial and error there, like how to present a product where it's like a live show, live play that you have to present every day, demonstrating a product, its benefits and features, and having people to use it. And it's very live and interactive, which gives you a lot of insight about how people think and react to things when you speak it. So that's a really good key, is getting the experience of that as a salesperson or a marketer. The second thing that I really caught on there was, you had some home runs pretty quick, and those were massive success. But then you probably got caught up in like, I'm so great, I'm so this, and the head kind of blows up sometimes. And then you had some failures that kind of knocked you on your butt and made you realize, you know what? There's got to be a simpler way, and maybe the way that you fixed it was find products that people actually need, that actually have a massive solution, because that a large audience could resonate to. Find those type of products and then push those type of products. So really,
I tell you, in our industry, I guess maybe it is for some people. It's easy to get a big head. It's actually kind of difficult, because it's kind of like the movie business, because as you're making it, writing it, and making it, you're very excited about it, and then it goes to edit, and then sometimes you may not know that your show works till 6 months after you made it, and so you're kind of in the middle of the next one. So I don't think I ever really got a sense of I'm awesome. I got a kind of sense of, how did that happen? Because you find out later that in those days you found out later. It wasn't like the online environment where like right away. So right. I'd find out a little bit later, and I'd be like, huh. And I'd feel good about it. I feel like I could talk to the consumer, but I just really had not considered that the first 6 products that fell in my lap were awesome products. And so I thought, oh, this is a formula, and I know the formula. But the key element was start with a good product, because I don't want to bring up anybody's failed products, but we said yes to some stuff we probably should not have said yes to.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? Maybe the money that it takes to produce something, it's kind of easy to say, yeah, I'll take that project even if you're not filling it. Maybe at some point I've seen that happen. Good to know too. The other thing that kind of came to mind was when you're talking about project, actually back commercial business was working really, really well, like Billy Mays and all these like greats that could really do good on it were crushing it. Do you feel like the internet ruined it? I mean, whenever the timing that this happened, there's been such a massive convergence of like TV shows versus like online streaming and stuff like that. Do you think that some of that had to play with some of these failed attempts or failed projects?
No, not at that point, because I mean we've had plenty of successes since then. So we've had great products through the television life cycle. I would say what the major change that has occurred is back in the early 2000s, because of the devotion to television from both the audience and the advertiser. You had to have something, and it was not cheap. You had to pick products that 80% of people could buy, because you had to have that kind of success on TV. You really had to have a large audience to make it work. Thanks to the fragmentation of the internet, I can now say yes to products that I would have said no to then, that have a very defined audience. It's now a matter of, can I find that audience in media, whether that media be online or be on TV? And GoPro kind of happened at the convergence of those two things. As television stations exploded in about 07 and 08, and Facebook it came into existence, and YouTube came into existence, GoPro came out at that same time. So it was in that same 2 to 3 year window. And we could, instead of having a GoPro half-hour infomercial, which is what we originally designed, we ended up having 13 or 14 spots that were all on very specific networks reflective of the viewer. So there were kayaking spots on the Outside TV network. There was car racing on Speed or on Velocity. There was skiing on ESPN. So we could now pair content to consumer. And that's exactly what we do now online. And for a lot of our brands and our clients and ourselves, or because we own a few products, we reverse engineer that now. We go online and find those verticals and try to blow the company up that way, and then go to television as a second or third tier approach as you're going into mass.
Right. Yeah, you definitely can test so much faster today with Facebook and Google ads. And yeah, really good points about like your demographics were kind of, you have good, back then you still had really good demographics, but you could only serve to those demographics with TV. Versus now there's so many sub and super demographics, I would say, nowadays that you can serve.
You could really succeed with an OxyClean. It'd be very difficult to succeed with an OxyClean today because of the change in media.
Interesting.
Where would you put your OxyClean? What channel would you pick? Well, we only had 30 channels to pick from, so it wasn't too difficult. But if you have 400 to pick from, where do you put those valuable media dollars to get that kind of success? It would be a hard choice.
So what has happened to the infomercial industry? I mean, it's still there? Is it still strong? Or is
It's huge. It's still in, but it's still in the areas where it was always strong. So housewares is strong. There's lots of cooking infomercials. Skincare, still hugely strong. Personal care development. So real estate, get rich quick schemes, all that stuff, still there. And you're seeing more things like nutraceuticals and vitamins, because those shows are very inexpensive to produce. You see a lot of Larry King style shows with two people looking out over each other's shoulders, reading a prompter, trying to look like they're supposed to be on TV. Like the infomercial that costs $30,000 to produce. There's lots of those.
Okay, fair enough. So we can kind of get off point a little bit, or actually too, like since I have you here, I could have you explain the GoPro story as well. I think that'd be a cool story to share as well, like how that started and where it, how you produced a Super Bowl commercial, and I think that'd be a great story to share.
Okay, well, I'll tell you how it generally happened. We found Nick Woodman at the, in fact, our new business development guy did, at the Outdoorsman show in Salt Lake City, Utah. And he came back to Seattle, and then he had met Nick, and he'd kind of shown us the camera. First camera was not that great. The next year I went back to the show and I met Nick personally. The camera had improved. The mounts were terrific. We said, okay, we got to go to TV with this. And he was ready. So he came back to Seattle, to our office. Our Seattle office was in Seattle at the time. And we sat down and crafted a half-hour infomercial. I wrote a creative brief and strategic brief for all of his media planning and how we were going to present the product and how we were going to have two angles in every commercial. And the essence of the camera is, in fact, I got one here, is when you turn this camera on, the first thing you do is you're looking at it and you go beep. Well, all the commercials start that way. with the face of the user as an avatar with goggles or a helmet on. So the psychology is your face goes here. This is you. So no longer do you have to tell people you're an awesome surfer or skater or skier. Camera does the work. And that was when social media exploded. So it's the ultimate sports selfie camera.
It became a wearable thing, right? It was like more of a wearable.
It is a wearable, and in fact, in my office here, I have a box that's got like 400 different kinds of mounts for it. But you can mount this thing. The mounts were actually at the beginning were better than the camera. This is a Hero 3. The Hero 1 was like a little pinhole camera. It was really not great until I got the batteries and the lenses figured out, and then they're good cameras now. But it was this idea of hook it on your helmet, on your chest, on your skis, on the pole, on your surfboard, on the front of your car, like all suction cups, all these different kinds of mounts that allowed you to make cinematic movies about yourself. So the first year, instead of doing a long form infomercial, we took that 30-page script and we just pulled it apart, and every page was about a different scene of a different sport. And we didn't shoot any commercials. We just sent the word out to consumers, and people submitted their video to us. And a lot of them were good sportsmen. Like, they were legit. I think Neil Adamson was one of is that the correct name? Yeah, Neil. He's the guy who does the wingsuits, jumps off the cliffs in Norway in wingsuits. So this guy, yeah, his dad was actually the accountant for the company. And then, his son was this extreme athlete. And so we got all this great footage of guys jumping in wingsuits off of cliffs in Norway and places. And we put those on TV, and those became our first ads. And to get traction, we ran a contest, which ran until about 2 years ago. So it ran for a decade. And the contest was every day we give a complete suite of GoPro products and mounts away to one person. And so people would go online, and there was this interrupt. And you go to GoPro.com, they would interrupt. They'd enter their data. Interrupt would go away. They get to the site, and they'd be like, oh, my God, this is used for everything. There's no way in hell I'm ever going to win this. So they buy it. And those purchases are what drove the company for the first year before we got retail distribution.
Wow.
So then we got retail distribution, and we were in Best Buy and electronic shops and ski and surf shops around the country. And a couple of years had gone by, we could afford Shaun White, we could afford Kelly Slater. So we got some kind of more extreme athletes in kind of every sport. And then the first Super Bowl time came around, and GoPro, because of their audience and X Games type athletes, became affiliated with Red Bull. So those two companies appeared at all of the same types of events. And Red Bull was sponsoring Felix, the guy that jumped out of the hot air balloon in space.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I don't know.
GoPro provided the cameras. And so that was shot, and the guy jumped out of the balloon in a spacesuit and came to Earth. That became, and we would never tell anybody what our Super Bowl creatives were. That became the first Super Bowl ad, was this guy in the countdown and jumping out of space. And it was the first close-ups, because people had seen footage of it, but they'd never seen like the extreme close-ups of his experience. So it was a pretty killer ad. And I think our second year ad was a baby.
It's like those video games too, like when you watch those ads, because it's like the first person video game where it's like you feel like you're in the person,
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about GoPro and the wearables and the ads. I know the one ad that I remember you telling me about, the one with the babies. That one is, you wrote that one, right?
It was a baby in the companies. It was one of the employees took the footage. Yeah. So it was essentially, that was a Super Bowl commercial. And the intent was there's as many women as men watching the Super Bowl. And women tend to buy more consumer goods than men. So how do we pull them in and include them? And how would you pick a sport in a sports camera thing? So we're like,
right.
Okay, let's not pick a sport. It's Christmas time-ish. People have money. Okay. So we had this baby, and the video was very simply a dad throwing his baby up in the air in the kitchen, but behind the kid there was a ceiling fan, kind of like I got a ceiling fan here. So that's in the background spinning, and the kid kind of jumps up into frame into the kind of the ceiling fan in the background, and it's kind of scary. Like, whoa, does dad know what he's doing? That was the first year I think we had slow motion in the camera too.
Nice.
So it was a slow motion. But I think the thing that actually out of that whole experience of Super Bowl ads, it's the most interesting is how we bought the media. Because what does a Super Bowl ad cost? Time.
Yeah, well, they say like $1 million, $2 million now, I think, right?
For 30 seconds, it's now up to $6 million a minute.
Wow.
So we were looking at 30-second spots at that time. They were about $2 or $3 million, and we bought them for about $300,000 or $400,000. The way that we did it was we didn't buy the Super Bowl time from CBS, ESPN. We went to all of the affiliates who also by FCC law get time every hour that you're doing advertising. So they had time. So we bought like the time instead of the local Ford dealership who wouldn't pay $70,000 for a 30-second Super Bowl ad because they'd never sell enough trucks to make that worthwhile. And so we went to Chicago, New York, Miami, to Dallas, and we picked all these cities, and we cherry picked this media and bought all the affiliate time. Well, they run their affiliate commercials whenever the heck they want to. So we asked for more because they weren't selling it. And so we ended up negotiating with several of them to get 2 or 3 runs, pre-game, during game, fourth quarter, post-game. So we got this jumble, but we ran the exact same commercial in every single slot. So Monday morning, when everybody's reporting on the Super Bowl commercials, they're like, holy smokes, GoPro bought like 3 spots. Can you believe that? And nobody's really counting or understands where or how that was bought. But they're thinking this company must be blowing it up. They just spent like $12 million on the Super Bowl, and we'd spent 10-15% of what everybody else was spending.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's do you think you can get away with that today?
Absolutely, you can.
Nice.
You absolutely can.
Nice. So you kind of hacked the system there, and pick some really good markets, U.S. based markets for the most part, right?
They were, we bought L.A., New York. We bought where people were watching the Super Bowl. Nobody was any wiser.
Nice. How did a lot of publicity, free? That's all free, obviously. How did that affect the company after that happened?
Well, the company's years were, when we met them, they were doing $600K. Then the first strategy of just going out there making commercials in short form that matched creatives got them to 6. The next year, same thing. We just repeated that, got them to 60 million. And then the next year was the start of the Super Bowl, and that got them to 600 million those years. Wow. We were still running on TV throughout the year, and they don't run on TV a lot anymore. They run pretty cyclically around the holidays.
Right. Well, they kind of like own the market too, and you go to buy extreme gear, skateboards, surfboards, snowboards. You're gonna see
they're at the hardware store. They're everywhere. They're at the airport. They are everywhere. Yeah, you can't get away from them. They're everywhere.
So they don't even need to do. I mean, they own their own market practically. All right, well, cool. Let's pivot off of that. So, because I don't want to have usually I don't like having the podcast too long, but I want to definitely give value. I think a lot of people definitely learned a lot of stuff already. Let's talk a little bit about Big Baby Agency, which is your agency, and I want to potentially talk about this campaign you're running are you spending any money in ads on this video that's kind of going viral?
No, I mean, we're spending money, but like $10 a day. We're not spending much of anything on it.
So literally, like, you've shared this February 19th. So like a couple of weeks ago, you shared this video, and just between, network of friends and, maybe a small budget, 28,000 views, 44 comments, 121 shares. And if you're open to it, if you want to talk a little bit about how you're kind of running that, and I can actually even share my screen here.
Sure. I'll give you a little bit more data on it that you can't see from your side that I can see from my side. I think that we have the kind of the miraculous stat to me is I believe we have 3,000 or 4,000 complete views, and it's a 30-minute ad. It is a half an hour freaking long. And the shares that I got, I didn't ask for. I didn't call anybody in advance and say, hey, I'm going to put this thing on. Would you help me out? I just put it out there, and people who knew me clicked on it because I normally don't do social media advertising for myself. And they saw it, and it kind of went from there. So
Wow.
and then we were at like 90 shares before I put any money behind it, before I started boosting it. So do you want to tell you what the content is real quick, or have people watch it? How do you want to do it?
Well, yeah, what I would do first for the listeners, people that aren't seeing the screen, I would go to Facebook and I'd go to Big Baby Agency. Just look it up based off that. You'll find it. There'll be a baby with like 3D glasses, and you'll know that that's the one. There's a video when you scroll down. There's a picture of Ron and is that your wife? I take it.
It better be.
It better be. But here's the thing: you go to start it, and Ron's in his kitchen, and he's giving his world famous pizza recipe. So he's got this like cross angle going on that, and it's beautifully done. And it's simply done too. That's what I love about it. It's very simple. It's it's palatable. It's very simple. But then you also talk about more advanced marketing concepts that take a little bit more for people to kind of wrap their minds around. But you give people the call to action in here to basically pick that up. So yeah, if you want to kind of touch on that as well, exactly kind of how that works, and what it's so far. It's just you just boosted it, so we don't really know what all the results are from this, but I can see that it's building a list and stuff like that.
Well, it's already generated a substantial amount of client inquiry and contracting for us too. And what's weird is a lot of our competitors are watching the video and not saying they are, but we get word back. Like there's been, I'm going to say some of the larger people in our industry have had all of their employees watch it. And the reason why is I do have a private training program. I only run it once or twice a year. It's not a thing I do for a ton of money. It's a thing I do for the ethics of giving back and teaching people how to advertise ethically, because there's a lot of unethical advertising out there. And there's people selling programs about how to do marketing, video marketing, and internet marketing. And from the best I could tell, those folks didn't have the type of experience that I had. They didn't have the breadth of actual case study and knowledge. And so I was kind of a little bit irritated by that. And the Lambo video, that, hey, there's my yacht, here's my Rolls Royce, here's my Lamborghini, here's my, here's my dog. That kind of marketing doesn't appeal to me. And I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in my kitchen and I'm going to make a pizza, because I know how to make pizza and I know how to do advertising. And if I simply tell people how to do advertising while I'm making a pizza, they'll get the impression, and they have, that I must know what I'm talking about. Because if I can talk about this so off the cuff while I'm making a pizza, and I have the case studies that I show, I probably know what I'm talking about. And that's the essence of the video. And so I walk you through about 7 or 8 steps of how to properly utilize Facebook and integrate Amazon and integrate YouTube, and what your ads should do. And I give an ad sequence, and it's an ad sequence we use, but you could swap some of the pieces if your marketing required it. Like, it's not like, oh, this is a formula and you got to follow the formula. It's formulaic. And so I walk through the formulaic steps, and I give hardcore real world examples. And so there's 5 or 6 commercials in the context of this half hour that I shot. I wrote, direct, produced, and shot all of them, and did the strategy for each one of them. So you get a sense of how I think and how this actually works in campaigns that work. So it really is a free education. Right? If I just give people that, it's going to do one of 2 things. It's going to attract people that want to do ethical advertising to kind of hang out. People like yourself. I get invited to conferences like the conference that you run, which I love. And then the other thing is it'll attract clients, because most people who do what we do don't have the breadth of knowledge, and clients will go, I'm going to talk to those people. And that's exactly what's happened in the space of 2 weeks. I've just about filled up my year.
Nice, beautifully done. I mean, I really commend what you've done there. It definitely grabbed my attention. I shared it with, our group on my personal fan page, and I really think people need to pay attention to how Ron has actually ran this video without really spending much money. I mean, obviously Ron he's pretty connected in the industry, but for a good reason. And you could do it though. These things are very duplicatable. I think the thing that at the end you give a little bit of a call to action for people to interact with your messenger bot, which is now powered by Segment, which is pretty cool.
Yes, it is. Thanks to you.
But in the back here, you're basically going to be able to get a copy of some of his strategies and also kind of see what he does. And I would recommend that you guys, when you get a chance, go there and check it out. I would definitely recommend it. All right, so let's go ahead and finish up with this part of the podcast. I kind of end it with this couple of quick questions. Really, the last one is what was the best piece of advice you were ever given in life?
Okay, can I tell this story?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, this is absolutely true. I was 22 years old. I had flown from Seattle to Los Angeles to meet my best buddy for a weekend of fun. And the evening that I arrived, I got off the plane and I'd probably had a few cocktails, and we went to the Marriott Hotel at LAX, and he worked for the Marriott. He'd rented us rooms, and I probably had a few more cocktails. And I might have been in my boxer shorts when I dove into the shallow end of the pool and split my head open, which might have hurt and it might not have, depending upon the amount of cocktails that I had. And I might have had a towel on top of my head and went back upstairs to our room to deal with that, and got the wise idea that we were out of ice and we needed more ice. So I took the ice bucket, had the towel on my head, dripping wet in my boxer shorts, and went to the ice closet, the machine was out of order, but I'm a genius, so I knew that all the machines are in the exact same place on every floor. I walked out, got in the stairwell, went up to the ice machine right above me, and opened the door, and I hit somebody. There was somebody in the ice room. And this is now 1:30 in the morning. And when I hit the person, I heard this, oh. And it sounded like an older person. And I was like, oh, I'm really sorry. Ice bucket, towel, blood. And I opened the door, and in front of me was Henry Kissinger, who was in the hotel. And there was actually 3 of him. So I talked to the one in the middle. And I said, I'm sorry. And then I felt bad, so I started scooping his bucket full of ice. And then Henry Kissinger, in his underwear, scooped my bucket full of ice. And I stood back, and I kind of got my wits about me, and I sobered up for a second, and I set my ice bucket down on the floor, and I put my hands on both sides of the wall so he couldn't get out. And I said, I'm sorry I got to do this, but you are on my top 3 list of people I would have dinner with if they would have dinner with me, and I'm pretty sure we're not having dinner now. So I got to ask you, I'm like 21, 22 years old. Can you give me a piece of advice that would be useful at my age? And Henry Kissinger looked me dead in the eye, and he said, no. And I said, what? And he goes, say no. If you say no, you can say yes later. But if you say yes, you can never say no later. And I have used that piece of advice in more negotiations and walked away from things and had people chase me down to give me the deal that I wanted more times than I can count. That single piece of advice has made me more money than anything else.
Wow. That's pretty phenomenal.
Pretty weird.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And did you ever meet him later on in life after that?
No, what's weird is that he's still alive, because this was years. I was in my 20s, so this was 30 years ago, and he seemed like an old man then, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
Like, you must be drinking baby's blood, because that's he's been around a long time.
Agency blood.
Yeah.
What's 5 years look like from now for you?
Oh God, I don't know what 5 weeks looks like from now. I don't tend to live that way.
Okay.
I mean, I tend to live like have worked really hard to live in the present. So I'm capable, so I'm never worried about the future. Um, I, I think that my wishes for 5 years down the road, I'm getting old enough now that it's more about other people, about positive outcomes for my kids, positive outcomes for my coworkers, my friends, the young people that I mentor, and that sort of thing.
What big project are you working on now that you can talk about?
Probably not a client-based project. I have a couple skincare projects that we own, but I would say my book. I'm writing a book right now that I'm almost done with. It's in edit. I'm going back and forth editing with Tucker Max, if you know Tucker, over at Scribe Media. But normally they write the book. In this case, I'm writing the book and they're critiquing it. And it is a business fable about a young man who joins the circus in his teens and becomes the operator of a circus. And it encompasses, because I didn't want to write an autobiography about all the nonsense that I've done. It seemed better to write a fable around a circus and just instill all of the business lessons I've learned within the context of a narrative. So
interesting. What's the name of it?
It's a circus out there.
It's a circus out there. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and cut the podcast at this point. For those of you that watched, this was Ron Lynch. If you liked this episode, make sure you come back and share it with your friends. Go to our fan pages. Make sure you check out Big Baby Agency and check out that video that we talked about. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Okay, Chatbots and digital marketing podcast listeners, this is Karl Schuckert. I want to thank you for taking your time and listening to Ron Lynch, a little bit about his story and his background and kind of how he got started and just some of the creative genius that I talked about earlier that he literally has. It was an exciting moment for me to have him on our call. It was fun. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I do want to remind you, if you have enjoyed listening to our podcast and you're getting something out of this, please go to facebook.com/Karl Schuckert, KarlSchuckert. We are definitely working on a website, and we may even change the name of our podcast because of the new site domain name. It's a little bit shorter than Chatbots and Digital Marketing. It's like Chatbots and Marketing is what I might be changing this to. Just giving you a heads up, when that happens, we will be at that domain, Chatbots and Digital Marketing. It'll actually be chatbotsandmarketing.com, but that's not up yet. So I'm just kind of giving you an insight that we might be changing that a little bit, but we'll still be calling our podcast Chatbots and Digital Marketing Podcast. So without further ado, please go like the fan page. I'm going to continue to show these videos as a video there. You can also find us on Medium, and all you have to do is go to medium.com and search Chatbots and Digital Marketing Podcast, and you will find our dedicated show notes. And in the show notes, you'll actually see and find anything that we talked about. We talked about Ron Lynch's agency. We also talked about his viral video that he has going on, and I want you guys to take a look at that because I think it's going to help you guys with your marketing needs. There's nothing for sale. I'm just giving you guys free content. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to continue to knock these things out of the park as we continue to grow. This is episode 10. Thanks for listening. Take care and have a fantastic evening, day, morning, or afternoon, wherever you're at. Have a great one. Talk soon.